Welcome back. This is number 2 in the series. Series of how many I don't know. I've actually got a few windows loaded up here. Decided there's so much going on here, I perhaps need a bit more detail. Before I get into that, I had no end of problems, as you probably noticed when I tried to load this on MeWe. It doesn't, or MeWe doesn't really, it allows you to load video or upload it, and allows you to watch it, and that's about all. I cannot find any way you can ever save it. So because a few people have got involved and want to see more details and want to be able to save it, I did start a YouTube channel, and I've posted those links in the comments section and the header section of my original post in MeWe. I will eventually remove those and just put the MeWe link, the YouTube link, and all subsequent episodes I'll do just as a link. It saves me a lot of space on MeWe and it makes life so much easier. But it has made me think I perhaps need to go into a bit more detail, particularly about what I've been doing here. And I thought I'd actually so how much more I'm going to get done in this episode, I don't know. There's just so much buried in the back of my head. I'd like to get as much out as I possibly can before it disappears, I suppose. Starting at these windows up here, I sort of touched on it but didn't go into a lot of detail. Obviously that's the layer list. Now this one you recognise, I did not long ago. That's the original picture I messed about with, like this one here, just as a template. As you can see, it's a bit daggy, but that's what it started out as, and that's what it ends up looking like. And that's pretty self-explanatory. One thing I touched on and didn't go into a great deal of detail, if I pick an obvious, okay, the face, that's the best part. Now, if I pick that layer there, I did mention these locks where it allows you not to erase them. That's not quite correct. If I actually use, there's the eraser, and there's the shape of the brush I want to use. If I do that, because it's got an alpha channel underneath, it's just going to literally remove it. So Control Z to undo that so I don't damage it, even though that's locked. It's a weird system, but you've actually got to go up here and you can actually see lock pixels or lock alpha. Now this relates to each layer that you have highlighted at the time. It doesn't do this for all of them. So if I put lock on that, and you can see it's highlighted, it comes off, but it's still highlighted. So if I use the rubber now, it's made a slight mistake there. Sorry, do that. See, it does that. It actually highlights that. It stops you. Now you can get off that, go back into that, still highlighted. Stops you damaging it. Stops you erasing it really by mistake. The other one is this one, which you can also highlight per layer. This is alpha channel for me. Yeah, lock alpha, what does it say? Lock alpha something. Lock alpha channel. Don't use a lot. It's when you actually start doing, alpha relates to the transparency, so it's when you do transparency layers or where it's part transparency, it locks the transparent component of the layer. So once again, you can't remove it by accident. I don't use them a lot, but you can use them. I predominantly actually use these, believe it or not, to remind myself which is the active layers I've got on here. Now, what I mean by that one there, because I wanted to do this, I'll start that again. When I do a lot of builds, I've got a fair idea of what I want the dim to do at the end of the exercise. And a lot of these layers, particularly indices, I want to highlight. Well, you can't highlight a black, not well anyway. So what I do, if I get rid of that and that, now that's the shadow underneath that. Bit hard to tell. Not a good example. Chrome works a lot better. But anyway, what I've done is I've taken a copy of that, converted it to white. Actually, from memory, I think I made it in white first. I do a lot of things in white, and then I colour it afterwards because white you can do things with. Colours, if you do it all black, you then actually got to completely convert it to a different colour, which sometimes loses a bit of definition. So what I do with these locks is I remind myself that's the ones in my normal download that I'm going to use, and then I'll actually hide all of these, bring these up, and drop those layers off as a separate image, which I overlay, and then toggle off and on in Watchmaker. It's just the process I use. Don't have to do it, but it's the way I do it. So anyway, that's the layers. That one there allows you the key colors, obviously, it allows you to adjust them. Honestly, I've never used it, never found it I needed to. That one there is actually for doing curved text, something I will show you because it's very old, very odd. Photoshop, I mean, the nearest comparison, yeah, GIMP is like Photoshop or vice versa. Photoshop's a lot nicer to use. I have used it. I just fell for this because it was free, and I'm still a cheap ass. I will show you how to use that. Now, the undo one, now this is quite interesting. These are all the undos of things I've been messing around with, but this is only from when I've been messing around this morning. Where I was talking about where you want to save up to a point, not save the image, but save the build, where you put save as, where it brings up this XCF file. One thing I actually didn't tell you about that, once you've done that once, it'll always load itself under that point. Then you only need to go save. It's only save as when you want to name it something. So when you do that, you call it whatever you want to call it, it does save everything. It saves all your layers, everything you've done, all your work. But I don't know why it just doesn't save these points. You can adjust how many of those, by the way, which are done in, we go to edit preferences. I actually go in and out here a bit. In the environment, there it is there, minimum number of undo levels 300. So you can adjust this up, down, and allow you to go backwards however many points, it'll even the amount of space you want it to be able to use. So what I tend to do if I'm doing something rather complicated, and I've just had it for the day, night, whatever, need to stop, I will save it, as I said to you before, but then actually put the computer to sleep, which will bring it back to exactly that point, and all these will be in place, these save points, in case you may need it. I have changed my mind sometimes, where I've gone, no, I don't like the look of that. Instead of redoing it from the start, I can go back layer by layer till I get to the point where I want to restart. That can save you a lot of work. The only downside with that is if your computer does an update in the middle of the night, it's happened to me several times, you don't lose this because you've already saved it back onto your hard drive, but you will lose these points, unfortunately. Not a whole lot you can do about that. Text is the next one. These are loading from your, in my case, Windows, which is where they store the fonts, the font file. And I've got hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, so they don't take up much space, so I just keep them. The beauty of that is if you want to do text, if I actually go, I know the key is just T anyway. If you push T and then the left mouse button will bring it up. I can't even actually, there you go, it shows you how often I look in here for fonts. Anyway, it's in there somewhere, but it's T. So if you do, you can see it's air conditioner 103. I'll just do that because I can. And that allows you to move that round. You can increase the size. You can make it central, left justify, right justify. You can space it, which is quite handy actually. You can space it out, go back to 0. You can do all sorts of crazy things. And then if you, and this is where I use it a lot, if I've got a face I'm working on, I want to try to match it, match a font as close as I can, you can actually go into your fonts and just I'm just toggling the down arrow now on my keyboard. You can just go through one by one, and I have been known to do this numerous times till I find something close. That's when I start manipulating it to how I want it, but I can try to get something close. If I go back to layers, you'll see it's generated that now. I'll just delete that because I don't want that there. So that's basically fonts in a nutshell. Oh, that was the other thing. If you want to add new fonts, this is where, as I said, GIMP can be a bit odd. That's the, you'll see rescan the installed fonts. If you drop one, if you drop a new font into your Windows font file, this is where this reads from, it'll only do that when you relaunch. And quite often I'll be in the middle of a build I don't want to lose what I've done, obviously. So there is a way around to actually get it in there immediately. And once again, back into Edit Preferences, funnily enough. If you go down to Folders, go into Fonts. In my case, it's the way you will have downloaded GIMP, but it's probably pretty similar to that. You'll find this one where it drops in the fonts. What you've actually got to do is go back to your desktop, use a file manager, and navigate to that folder there, and just drop it in there, and then tap that. It takes a little while because it goes through every font you've got, but it will update it. It'll appear there straight away. It's just a cheat way to get in and out. Going on to the next one. This one's quite interesting. This is where your patterns, blinds. Perhaps if I show you, if I go back, just go back here. We'll use that layer because I already. Oops, I'll get rid of that. I'll go back right at the top here. On top of that, I'll add a new layer. There it is. There. We'll draw. I don't know, a circle. Expand from the center. And see, there you go. I made a mistake there. Wrong window here. So if you want to do just a circle, just a square, use this mode on the first one. Click off that just to get rid of that, or hit escape, we'll do the same thing. There it is there. Now if we go back here, we can have blinds, for instance. Now there's a bucket fill. You can bucket fill that with that color. You can actually, no, I won't do blinds. I'll get to that in a moment. I go foreground to transparent. Now Alt-Z just undoes that last action. This one here, it's a blend tool. I think they call it a blend tool. Yes, I do. Now I've done foreground to transparent. Actually, I'll do foreground as, that's the foreground, that's the background. As you can see, it brings them up here. You can toggle those backwards and forwards. And if I do that, it's exactly what it does. This is where you get, it's blending from black to transparent. Looks a little odd, but you can do quite interesting things. For instance, actually, I can show you, if you want to do the reverse of that, we'll add another circle. Go back to circle, but I want to go inside this time, so I toggle that one, take it off the center. I'll just take a guess here, doesn't really matter, I'll end up with basically a moon. If I click on that, you see you now got the moon. Now you can fill that like that. Go all the way across there if you want. You can see it gradually fades out. You can do all sorts of weird things, and you can blend this, you can merge it in, you can do all sorts of things, but that's basically how you do something like these. It's quite simple. You can smooth it, round it, flare it, do all sorts of crazy things. Really just to show you what it's capable of doing. That's where you use the foreground, but if you want to do foreground to background, and then once again we go blend, it'll do that. Or you can reverse that, or you can reverse it here. Makes really, there's a dozen different ways you can do this. But what I will show you while I'm here, because it's just as easy, we'll go there, we'll go there. You can pick off center, something like that, and that's how you get this effect. What I'll do, I'll just tone that grey down, or that black down to a bit of a grey, so it's not quite so dark in these points. A little bit darker than that. Out there, it's a bit of trial and error, really. But if I pick a point of about there, once again, jumping around here a little bit, I'll click off that just while it's there. Gives you this type of baller shape, if you like. And this is how I do a lot of those backgrounds on faces, which I'll show you how I do that grainy texture. It's really quite simple. You'll be amazed how simple it is. All you actually do, you don't need this highlight. You actually go into filters. Artistic. You need to go through these because there are 1,000 different little features, and I just experiment with all of them. Some I use a lot, some I never use at all. If you go into artistic, and I found this one by sheer luck, go to Clothify. Now it's normal to font. I was messing around with this earlier. I never actually have played with these, don't have to. If you go for 3 and go OK, you'll recognise this as soon as you see it. Gives you that effect. Now, if I go undo, Alt-Z again, we go back to the same artistic Clothify. If I change that to 9, say, you can change angles, you can change all sorts of things on it. To me, that's a bit harsh, so I go Alt-Z. Go filters. Sorry, I've got to think about this. I do this without thinking, and it's harder, it's harder when you think about it. Spotify, we'll go to about 6. We'll split the difference. That will be quite reasonable. Right, so that's there. Now, the beauty of doing it this way is you can now colour this, and it accepts colours very nicely. So if you go into colours and go into colorize, that's brought up that default colour. So just get that out of the road a bit. Now you can change colours here. We'll go into a nice red. I know that's right at the end. You can change the saturation. You can see what that's doing. More saturated colour. Depends on your preference. And you go lightness and darkness. You go too dark. Yeah, I don't mind that, but you lose a lot of definition. You go too light, it loses it all. So you can see it's quite, and every colour's in there. It's a matter of picking, and then you can fine tune it by one point at a time. But you can. It's all infinitely variable, basically. And an interesting point, if I go back there, the reason I drag from this way, Gavril taught me, basically, and he was the same opinion as myself. And the software is set up this way, so we all agreed it must be correct, that a normal watch build, you assume the light is coming in here between 10 and 11. And I suppose if you think about it, if you're left-handed, I suppose right-handed as well, but if you're left-handed, you're right-handed, but you're watching your left hand, and you're looking at your watch, the light traditionally is coming in from around this point. It's not down here. If it is, it's an artificial light, and you'll see most watch images, the light source is coming in from this way. And interestingly, most of these features I use, I don't adjust a lot of it. For instance, this is one of the things I added, the layer effects, bevel and emboss. Now I use this to death. Now those angles and altitude are telling the light to be coming in from this way. You can do a million things with this, and I'll get into that. But that's why I picked this point. You can do it. You can, for instance, if I just undo again, highlight that, go for blend. You can put it on radial, but you can work from the center. You get this type of thing. Yeah, you can pick it from any point you like, but to me, that looks unusual. Whereas I find it works quite well from this, as I said, just something that I assume. So that's basically that. I'll go back here and just delete it because it's easier, but I'll leave that there. It might come in handy. So we've done those. You can also fill, sorry, that's where I was going with that. You can actually fill with these come already in there. You can also download more. You can add your own, but you can fill it with these patterns. Tend not to use it because it's not the sort of thing I do. This one you can adjust within the patterns. I don't use it a lot. There's your patterns there. I won't go heavily. There's a million tutorials about all this stuff in there. That's warnings where I've made errors. You can clear that out, but I don't normally bother. I really have these set up. That's pretty well up to about that point there, about the only ones I ever use and ever need to use. I'll be back in a moment. I'll just check to see how long this has gone for. Yeah, we're up for about 18 minutes, so I'll do a couple of things here. Once again, not going to get onto this build still, so you have to bear with me. This is going to go on for a while. You may remember that one. What I wanted to just touch on was, if I get rid of all of these, just to, where I talked about trying to get a front-on image as a template where it doesn't necessarily matter. That's enlarged dramatically because I wanted to get the definition. But that's basically the angle of what I started out as to get, well, yeah, I can't really show you because it's buried underneath. To actually get, what you can actually do is go Alt-Z again. We'll just re-highlight all of these just to show you. That's kind of why I like doing scratch builds, because you don't need a definition, a definite front-on high definition image. You can, that's how I started, but I just found this a natural progression that allows you to basically do anything, including your own builds. You don't need to rely on someone else's parts. You can make your own. It's quite simple. Some of them have been a lot worse than that, where it's just, and I really use this for scaling. I sort of look at it and think, well, that's, roughly a quarter of the way down, so I try to pick a quarter of the way on. Whoops. a quarter of the way on here, and I just keep moving things around until I get it. That's really the only reason I put that there. And I think at that point I will call it quits till the next one, and hopefully I'll see you again soon. Bye.